All right, question of the day, Justin Fields edition. I figured let's just, finish it off with tomorrow's question being, what's your thought on Zach Wilson? Let me know your thoughts on Zach Wilson in the comments below. Might use that for next video, and then we'll do something different than the young quarterbacks. So get that in. But anyways, for today, your thoughts on Justin Fields. Let's just get into it. When Fields was first drafted, I thought he had the potential to be like Watson. Now, I think it's still possible. I feel more and more like I'm watching Geno Smith. He's not awful with but with Chicago, I feel like he might be artificially capped until he becomes too old to develop. Listen, one thing we talk about a lot during these videos is the best predictor of future success of quarterbacks is what situation did you get drafted into, and that's been a tough situation. It has. And unlike, say, for example, the Jets, who were a bad situation, they've actually done a good job, though, even though it was a bad situation getting drafted into, they've done a good job at helping out Zach Wilson, whereas for Justin Fields, that really hasn't been the case. So I certainly think that it's fair to say that he might not live up to his potential, partially due to just Chicago itself. Justin Fields can make great plays, but he is known for taking big hits. I'm afraid he is going to get injured unless he learns to not take those huge shots. Yeah, that's something he does have to get better at. Not taking as many shots is a very real thing. He is someone who, part of it is you like that, right? He's someone who just wants to win so badly. It's weird how there was some talk about him not loving football or something like that coming out of the draft, which on tape, I don't see that at all. I see him as someone who clearly loves football and is, he'll take as many hits as possible. You need to pull it back a little bit. Even like those late slides cause him to get hit in the head. He just needs to learn to protect himself a little bit better for sure. As a Packers and Michigan fan, Justin Fields scares me. I am a huge fan of him, which sucks, but he is a playmaker who shows a lot of promise, good arm, good legs, good promise. Yeah, the highlights are incredible, right? There's no denying that. Fields has those highlights, and you feel like if he can get the consistency down, that's where he can really become, worth, a top first half of the draft selection for a quarterback. It is always the worst, right? When there's a likable player that plays for someone who's on one of your rivals. Like, I absolutely hate when something like that happens, but that's the nature of the business, I guess, the nature of being a fan. Fields needs to play and fail a few more times. His issue has been holding the ball a bit too long, which is a hangover from college where he had a top O-line and talent on the outside. They can hold blocks and let those deeper routes open up for guys to drop bombs, and that's what he got comfortable doing. The NFL isn't like that, and that's why Tua struggles. You don't get that type of time or separation. And you saw the same thing with Trevor Lawrence as well. I think that was another similar thing of he's another guy who you could see that kind of, those issues happening just with, being in a very collegey offense, trying to get to the NFL. I do agree. The holding onto the ball for too long, it's a real thing that he has to get better at. It was a thing in college. It was an issue with him in college at times. So it's definitely going to be an issue at the NFL level. But that is kind of an issue with everyone, right? Is that, you hold on to the ball for too long and then eventually you get better at it. I do feel like so far all of the criticisms we've had of Fields are things that he can improve on. For Fields, I think he went to a horrible situation that hides what he does well and exposes his weaknesses. I feel like if he would have gone somewhere like the 49ers, he would have done much better. Yeah, it does just feel like that would have been a perfect fit for him, right? The 49ers, that would have just been like a perfect, marriage right there. Now, I had Trey Lance higher on my board than I had Justin Fields, so I'm not mad at them for not doing that, but that certainly would have helped Fields out a lot, I think, for sure. Fields is an amazing athlete with a cannon for an arm, although I think his intermediate and short passes need a ton of work. I don't think Nagy gave him all the tools and tricks for a rookie. It kind of felt like with Fields more than any of the other rookies that he was learning the position on the fly. Yeah, that's a good point. I do feel like he is someone who didn't really seem like he was like, a quarterback. Kind of felt like he was just out there playing, right? He was just playing football, which isn't the worst idea in the world. I think sometimes guys should do more of that, but I do feel like the structure that Chicago was trying to make work wasn't really working, and he was kind of at his best when he was just scrambling around and trying to make something happen, which is not a great place to be. Now, the question is that a Matt Nagy issue, or is that a Chicago Bears, team issue? I actually put more of it on the team than Nagy. I think Nagy gets a little bit, I think anytime a team doesn't have receivers getting open, the offensive coordinator / offensive head coach is going to get some criticism there, but it's not always their fault. Sometimes they are calling up good plays and the receivers just aren't executing. That happens, and I think that happened a lot in Chicago. and I don't know if they're going to be that much better this following year, which is another reason to be concerned. But that being said, the results are still the same for Fields. You can't look good throwing the football if you don't have anyone getting open. I had a 3rd round grade on Mitch Trubisky. Sorry, I mean Justin Fields last year. My thoughts haven't changed on that, but hey, it seems like I like him more than the Bears organization. Yeah, I think we all like him more than the Bears organization. That's true. I wasn't crazy on Justin Fields either coming out of the draft. I had him as a 1st round talent. I just, I thought that there was other guys that I liked more than him. But yeah, I don't think if you are someone who, had concerns about him, you had concerns about him holding onto the ball for too long, taking too many chances and making some, I'm not saying that he's a dumb player because he's not. He's smart pre-snap, but post-snap, sometimes that decision-making can come into, has been an issue for him, which is why I gave him sort of that Carson Wentz comparison, who's not a bad player either. Like Carson Wentz, was a big part in the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl run. But you kind of have to be in a perfect situation to be successful there, which he has not been. Justin Fields, 5 years from now, he'll be hard to remember. I don't know about that. I mean, I think that first off, like we remember Marcus Mariota, right? That was more than 5 years ago. So I think that we will still remember Justin Fields, 5 years from now. I think that he will still, at least, I think that he has the potential to at least be like a player in the NFL. To me, when I've seen him play, even as someone who's not a huge fan of him, I think he belongs in the NFL for sure. I think Fields showed the highest ceiling out of all the rookie quarterbacks last year, but he really panics when pressured. And if his second year goes anything like last, he will be ruined forever. Prayers for your doggy. Also, yes, dog's doing better. Thank you to everyone who has continued to comment on that. I do appreciate it. But yeah, Fields having the highest ceiling or a showed highest ceiling, I don't know if I agree with that. I think that, again, part of it depends on how you define ceiling. I think Mac Jones probably had the best, 3 to 4 week run out of any of these guys, so you could throw that out there. If you're looking at, best results, maybe you throw Davis Mills in there for, he had a couple of really good games. And then if you want to say, just the best highlights, I'd probably go Zach Wilson, but you could go Justin Fields. I think that also does check out. If you look at just everyone's top 10 plays, his are probably up there and maybe are the best. So I do get I can get that and I can understand it, but you're right. Has to figure out what to do under pressure because he has struggled there. Glad to hear Doggo is doing better. Yes, thank you very much. As far as Justin Fields, I'm not going to lie to you. I really wanted him over Zach Wilson, even if Zach Wilson fits the Shanahan scheme better. I'm a fan of his athleticism. He has a fairly strong arm, even if the arm talent isn't as unicornish as Zach's, and he showed the toughness by taking that massive hit in one of the championship games and still playing the rest of the game. However, the Bears are being the Bears, and he is pretty much effed. So, yeah, listen, I don't totally disagree with a lot of that. I think that, I think that the Bears situation is tough. I think that there's reasons to like him more than Zach Wilson, although obviously I was a huge Zach Wilson fan just because of what you said, the unicornishness of Zach's arm. But there is a lot of stuff to like about him. I do think that he's an incredible athlete. I mean, he ran like a 4.4 on his pro day, probably closer to a 4.5 if it's on a combine, but it's still an incredible time for his size to be doing that. He's built like just a slightly smaller Cam Newton and still has a lot of this great stuff. I almost feel like maybe you should have him run the ball more, potentially. That could be a good idea, but there is plenty to like about him, and I get why people were so high on him coming out of the draft, even though I wasn't as big of a fan of him, because he does have that high ceiling. But, yeah, the Bears not doing a great job. I think we can all agree on that. So, Justin Fields. There is a trend going on in the league where almost every quarterback drafted is a very good athlete. Willis, Corral, Ritter, Fields, Lawrence, to name a few. I have a feeling that some, not all, are being overdrafted because they are athletic, and I'm scared that is the case with Justin Fields. That's an interesting theory that I hadn't really thought of too much because, we're all trying to find the next Josh Allen. We're all trying to find the next Patrick Mahomes, and so that might mean that we kind of look at these other great athletes and say, oh, well, let's draft that guy, even though they're just nowhere near the quarterback that, maybe some other guys are. It's an interesting theory. I don't know if it's true, though. That's kind of the thing. It makes sense in my head, but that doesn't mean that it's true necessarily because I have, one thing that would support that theory is the guy who performed the best as a rookie last year was Mac Jones, who was not considered this great athlete, which I still feel like his athleticism a little underrated, but certainly not Justin Fields type by any stretch of the imagination. And so because of that, I think that, he fell a little bit in the draft. Probably should have been, picked higher in hindsight. And, I like Mac Jones a lot. I said the Niners should have drafted him there. But that's kind of a good example of that scenario happening. So I'm not going to say that you shouldn't now draft good athletes, or you should, make sure that you draft guys who aren't good athletes if they're considered hyped up prospects. But maybe just pay a little bit more attention to, like, hey, listen, it's great that you can do all the things and you can check all the boxes, but let's make sure you're also a good quarterback on top of that. So yeah, that is that is your thoughts on Justin Fields, but I always get my own thoughts in there as well. We're going to continue it with Zach Wilson, and then we'll figure something else out to do after that. So question of the day for tomorrow: your thoughts on Zach Wilson? Keep this going, same way we did it today, and then I'll see you tomorrow. Let me know what you think of Wilson in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.